Good morning, my name is Christelle from Frans, the Klerk Independent Technical Analyst. The first one on our list this morning is Metair. And we know that this share has been beaten to the bottom where it's found beautiful support in the week of the 4th of March at R9.87 on a line graph. I've got a beautiful positive divergence on my stochastic where my shorter moving average, that K line, the blue one, has broken upwards through my orange one. And that means the probability for a bounce to higher levels is there. Now the share made a bounce and now it found resistance at 12.50. It's closed at 12.36. And now the big test is, will it change that 12 Rand 50 into a support again? If it does that, it will confirm the next higher low, which will be seen as positive for Metair. My 40-week moving average is waiting at 16 Rand and 7 cents. Above that level, the long-term sentiment towards the share will change to positive. So above 12.50, Metair confirms a higher low, which means you can start to accumulate. But below 9.87, we can assume when that support, this 9.87 support, starts to change into a resistance, we can assume again that the momentum to the bottom can continue. But with a positive divergence in an oversold territory, it means there's still a lot of room for upside. That elastic band has got a lot of room before it gets stretched in overbought territory. And if we go back to the history of Metair, we can see that the last time the share traded around these levels of 12.37 was back in 2011. It came close to that in 2020 at around 13 Rand 55. But yeah, so Metair, a possible opportunity to maybe have a look at. Let's have a look at Telkom. Ticker on our exchange, TKG. A very important thing has happened on Telkom at the moment, and that is the fact that my 40-week moving average, represented by that red line, has now changed into a resistance. That tells me there is not enough long-term power, long-term buyers to keep this long-term sentiment towards the share to positive. Look at my stochastic. Both lines are still pointing downwards, implying that the momentum to the bottom is in place. Very important. There was a strong support there on the 40-week moving average that weighted around 26 Rand 87, and that level has changed into a resistance, and this obviously confirmed the next lower high, but also a inverse cup and handle formation, which is a warning formation that says, listen, expect more profit taking and the share can go lower. If you draw a diagonal neckline, this can even be seen as a head and shoulder formation. Nevertheless, the neckline would have been at the same place. They're around 26.86 on the 40-week moving average. That tells me do not try to catch a falling knife. The momentum to the bottom is clearly in place. The warning or the negativity around this inverse cup and handle formation will only be wiped off the table when the top of the handle, and that is waiting at 28 Rand 54, only when that level starts to change into a support again, can I say the warning is off the table and we can see that the momentum to the top can continue again, and hopefully when that level changes into a support, it will attract more buyers, because we know no matter how profitable or how good a company might look on paper, if there's not enough buyers, the share price just won't rise. Investec Ltd, ticker INL on our exchange. We can see also lower highs at the moment on INL. Let me just delete these for you, pull back. And that tells us negativity, right? It tells us that every time the share bounces, there are investors that takes profit. So the share bounced, found resistance at 125.59, pulled back. Bounced again, found resistance at 125.27, pulled back. Found strong support there at 119.74, bounce. Found resistance at 124.72. Every time my bounces became lower, it implies lower highs, and that is seen as negative. Now, the share is currently trading at a very close level of that neckline that represents a possible inverse cup and handle formation. And should Investec Ltd start to trade below that neckline, and that is waiting at 119.68, below that neckline, my inverse cup and handle formation will be on the table, which means I can see the share back at its 40-week moving average, waiting at 114.61. Interesting enough, look at this. My 40-week, my stochastic, the blue line within my stochastic look like it wants to turn around, right? Should it do that, it means that one, that support will remain in place, and then these next resistances now then has to change into support levels, and that is waiting at 121.25 and that 124.72 level. These are then levels that have to change into a support in order to sustain the momentum to the top. But it's always dangerous to buy a share when it's have already given you such a beautiful rally. But it doesn't mean it can continue the rally when these resistances start to change into a support. But like anything, when we start to move in record territory, the equipment and the tools needs to be a lot stronger, right, to dig into the ground. And it's the same with shares. When it starts to move into record territory, there needs to be a lot of more buyers, a lot of more capital needs to flow to these share prices to bring it to higher levels. So let's see if Investec Ltd will change those resistance levels into a support, or otherwise below that 119.68 level, the share will warn. Grindrod Shipping, ticker GSH on our exchange. Very interesting. A beautiful falling wedge formation has now changed into a support. That is seen as positive. A falling wedge formation is a positive formation. 2, my 40-week moving average represented by that red line has now changed into a support. That is seen as positive. My stochastic has confirmed a positive divergence with that blue line breaking upwards through my orange line in semi-oversold levels, right? Sitting there on a 29.37. But nevertheless, there's still a lot of room for upside. Now, what is the target of a falling wedge? We're very conservative, so we normally take the midline of the falling wedge formation and we project it upwards, which means Grindrod Shipping can possibly go back to 227.80 Rand should the full formation play out. Now, very important, a very critical resistance levels is waiting at that high there on the 9th of October 2023, and that is at 241.99 Rand. Above that level, we can assume higher levels and that there is enough buyers to take the share price lower. The optimism around this falling wedge formation will become a little bit more negative when my 40-week changes into a resistance. That is waiting at 180.37. But very important, this lower band needs to remain a support. And if I project it, it's sitting there at around 158.37, depending how long it takes the share to go and test it again. Should it even do that? Doesn't mean it has to go and do that. So that critical support level on my falling wedge, that lower band, has to remain in place in order for this falling wedge formation to play out completely and to take this Grindrod Shipping share to new levels. On the US market, Pan American Silver was one of the shares that was requested, and it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange, ticker PAAS. My stochastic is sitting on a 39, Errol, meaning, look, this positive divergence has been confirmed, both lines pointing upwards, implying that the momentum to the top is still in place. Now, the share kept on making lower highs, right? Look at that. Every time it bounced, it pulled back, it kept on making lower highs. Now, very important, we can see, first thing, it needs to change that previous resistance, the first closest resistance, right? Waiting at $14.50 has to change into a support in order to sustain the momentum to the top, or to give us some indication that there's enough buying power to lift the share price to new levels. My second resistance that needs to be overcome is represented by that red line, my 40-week moving average, and that is waiting at $14.88. And very important, look at previous times how this share price struggled to keep this 40-week moving, well, just change it into a support and then keep it a support in previous instances. So this 40-week moving average is a critical level on Pan American Silver, a level that needs to change into a support, $14.88, and remain one in order to sustain the momentum to the top. But very important, it's trading at very low levels. If we go back to a little bit longer, this share is trading at levels of 2020, also in March of 2020, at very, very low levels, and then a strong lamp pole formation took this stock back to $37. So Pan American Silver, a share that you can have a look at, keep it on your radar. Obviously a critical support level that has to remain in place is at this horizontal line, waiting at $12.89. The share price has to keep $12.89 a support in order to sustain the momentum to the top. PayPal. One of the favorites, a lot of online shopping portals use them to pay in any way or means across the world. Now, the stochastic is sitting in the mid zone, right here at a 50. That is not an ideal place to buy or sell any share. Why? Because you want to attack your opponent when he's in the corners of the boxing ring, right? You don't want to try to attack him in the middle because there's so much room to go either side. And the same principle applies with the stochastic. You want to buy a share when it's oversold with a positive divergence, meaning there's still a lot of room for upside. And you want to start taking profit on a share when it's overbought above an 80 or a 90 with a negative divergence. Now, PayPal is here in mid-zone, which doesn't make it an ideal place to accumulate. But what is very important and what is very positive about PayPal at the moment is, one, the fact that that red line, the 40-week moving average, have changed into a support. And again, like Pan American Silver, we can see it is a critical level that was previously tested and could not change into a support. So if PayPal can attract enough buyers to change the 40-week moving average into a support and keep it one, it will be seen as very, very positive. Important, we are sitting here with a possible cup and handle formation. And I say possible, right? Because that resistance needs to change into a support first, waiting at $66.24. Once that resistance changes into a support, this cup and handle formation or saucer formation will confirm optimism for investors. And the optimism will only be wiped off the table when the lower band of that handle, waiting at $59.01. Once that changes into a resistance, the cup and handle, optimism of the cup and handle will be off the table. So $59.01 US cents is a critical level that needs to remain a support. And then obviously that 40-week moving average waiting at $61.20 is a critical level that needs to remain a support. If we go back, same story in history on PayPal. Other than the early or late 2023 year in October, it reached almost recent record low levels. But if we go back, we can see PayPal is now trading at the same levels it did in 2017. One of the reasons, obviously competition, a lot of new platforms have arisen, and they sometimes have a lot of technical issues, right? Obviously, foreign legislation across nations are changing. All these are different things and balls that PayPal have to bat in order to remain relevant, remain up to date, and remain the portal to use when online payments or international payments get made. But keep an eye on this. The technicals are saying that we are possibly seeing optimism. And I think there was a spike in volume recently on PayPal. What does that mean? It means that should the share price start to continue to rise, that these jump in volumes is telling me that it was more buyers than sellers. So a rising share price combined with a spike in volume is a very good and positive indication for a share price, implying that there is enough buyers that was attracted to the share to continue to sustain the momentum to the top. When the share price starts to decline on a spike in volume, it is seen as very negative. It means obviously the opposite, that sellers was attracted and that we can see more downside. But let's assume that these higher lows and this beautiful cup and handle formation on PayPal will be confirmed, and the 40-week moving average changes into a support, then this spike in volume on PayPal will be seen as very positive. Don't forget to send through your requests for next week's show. Have a fantastic week. Take care.